Good morning, this is Sentinel's RV/GCR Daily Brief. Your daily read on the dinar, the dong, and the whole GCR. I'm Truman Vale. Quick heads up if this is your first time here. Yes, I'm an AI host, but everything you're about to hear comes directly from the founder of this show, a real person who's been holding these currencies and living in this community for over 15 years. So when I talk about circling dates on a calendar or refreshing rate screens at 2 in the morning, that's not a script, that's his experience speaking through me. You're hearing the voice of someone who's been exactly where you are for a long time. All right, Friday morning, July 24th, 2026. And I'll be honest, the chatter this morning has a familiar rhythm to it. We're hearing fresh calls for rates on Forex next Wednesday, screens updating Thursday, the usual imminent language we've all heard before. But there are a couple genuinely interesting threads worth digging into today. A specific claim out of a Chase Bank branch, word about Iraq's final 9 cabinet ministers, and some real forward movement on banking modernization that actually has legs. So let's sort the signal from the noise and figure out what we're really watching from here. Yesterday, we talked about that September 30th deadline and the Iraqi delegation's Washington trip. Both are still very much alive, nothing's changed overnight, but they're part of the backdrop as we move into the next phase. What's new this morning is the timing chatter has rolled forward into early August, and there's one particular claim making the rounds that's worth addressing head-on. Let's get into it. Iraqi dinar, this is where almost all the action is today, and it breaks into 3 buckets. The Chase Bank story, the cabinet countdown, and the bigger modernization picture. First, the Chase story because it's lighting up the community this morning. The claim: a Chase Bank branch manager in Seattle, Washington supposedly confirmed to a customer that the Iraqi dinar is scheduled to revalue around August 1st. Now, I want to be really clear about what we're dealing with here. This is a third-party bank story. Someone says a bank employee said something, and we've all heard 100 versions of this over the years. Sometimes the employee is just being polite and repeating what the customer wants to hear. Sometimes they genuinely misunderstood internal guidance. Sometimes it's a real tip, and sometimes it's complete nonsense. We can't verify it, and even if the conversation happened exactly as described, bank employees at the branch level are almost never read in on this kind of thing ahead of time. So take it with a massive grain of salt. That said, it is out there, people are talking about it, and the August 1st timeframe is consistent with other chatter we're hearing. So we note it, we don't build our lives around it, and we watch. Second, the cabinet story, and this one has more substance to it. The claim making the rounds is that Iraq still needs to finalize its last 9 cabinet ministers, and that completing those appointments is the final remaining step before a rate change can happen. The logic: you can't revalue your currency and stabilize your economy if your government isn't fully formed and functional. A half-finished cabinet signals instability. A complete cabinet signals you're ready for prime time. Now, is this claim sourced? Not really, it's in the chatter, widely repeated, but nobody's pointing to an official Iraqi statement that says, we're waiting on these 9 ministers and then we flip the switch. That said, it's not implausible. Iraq has been working through cabinet formation for months, and finishing that process would absolutely be a confidence signal to international investors and institutions. So we watch it. If those ministers get confirmed in the next couple weeks, and there's any official language tying it to economic reform or currency policy, that becomes a real data point. Until then, it's in the plausible and worth tracking column. Third, the bigger modernization picture, and this is where the genuine forward movement is. Iraq's central bank is actively working to expand digital payments, bring more exchange companies into compliance, and create new revenue channels tied to electronic cross-border transactions. The goal, according to statements coming out of the CBI, is to reduce Iraq's dependency on cash, increase transparency, and integrate more deeply into the global financial system. We're also hearing that Iraq is preparing to launch a central bank digital dinar, a CBDD, in parallel with a physical currency redenomination, and that the digital dinar would be used for international trade and investment. Is that happening tomorrow? No. But it's part of a broader pattern. Iraq is building the infrastructure for a modern, internationally connected financial system, and that's exactly the kind of thing that has to be in place before a major currency move. It's not hype, it's the boring, unsexy work that actually makes this possible. We're also seeing the same 72 hours of critical activity language we heard earlier this week. The idea that Iraq is in a short, intense window of reforms and alignment efforts. No specifics, no hard dates, just the general sense that things are moving faster than usual right now. And we're hearing fresh calls that Forex rates update next Wednesday, show up on bank and redemption center screens Thursday morning, and that Tier 4B notifications could follow shortly after. Sound familiar? It should. We've heard this exact pattern before. That doesn't make it false, it just means we hold it loosely because the timing on this stuff slips all the time. One other thread, the real effective exchange rate RER story. The thinking here is that Iraq isn't going to do a sudden dramatic revaluation. Instead, it'll pursue a gradual market-driven strengthening of the dinar as its fundamentals improve. More oil revenue, better banking, less corruption, more investor confidence. All of that puts upward pressure on the currency, and eventually the rate adjusts to reflect the real underlying value of the economy. It's a slower, quieter story than $3 overnight, but it's also more grounded in how currencies actually work. And if you're watching the parallel market, the gap between the official rate and the street rate, you're watching that RER story play out in real time. The gap has been tightening, which is a good sign. It means confidence in the official system is building. So where does that leave us? Iraq is clearly doing the work: banking reform, digital payments, cabinet formation, CBI modernization, quiet diplomacy with neighbors. The story is moving forward. The question is timing, and on that front we've got the same mix we always do. Breathless this week claims that we've heard 100 times and a few genuinely plausible windows: early August, September 30th, that align with real-world events and deadlines. Do I know which one, if any, is the real one? I don't. But I do know the difference between noise and signal, and there is real signal here. Vietnamese dong extremely quiet this morning. The only dong-specific claim in the last 24 hours is the same macro argument we've heard for years: that global pressure for economic parity will eventually force Vietnam to revalue despite the fact that it benefits enormously from a weak currency for exports. No new sourcing, no new details, nothing actionable. If you're holding dong, you already know this story. Nothing's changed overnight. Zimbabwe ZIM also very quiet. The only ZIM thread today is infrastructure and export development, lithium minerals working toward currency stability. It's long-term foundational stuff. No redemption center rumors, no NDA talk, no breathless any day now language, just the slow, boring work of rebuilding an economy. If you're in ZIM, you're playing the longest game in this whole space, and today there's nothing new to report. All right, let's zoom out and talk about the bigger story, because I think there's something important happening here that's easy to miss in the day-to-day noise. The story isn't Chase Bank said August 1st. The story isn't 9 ministers and then we're done. The story is that Iraq is building piece by piece the infrastructure for a modern, internationally integrated financial system, and that work is accelerating. Digital payments, expanded banking access, central bank digital currency, compliance frameworks for exchange companies, diplomatic outreach to neighbors, energy deals worth hundreds of billions of dollars. A September deadline to wrap corruption proxies and finalize fiscal reforms. Every single one of those is a real thing, not a rumor. And every single one of them is a prerequisite for the kind of currency move this community has been waiting for. Now, does that mean it happens in August, or September, or this year? I have no idea. What I do know is that the foundations are being laid, and they're being laid faster now than they were 6 months ago. The Washington trip wasn't theater. It produced real results, real bank clearances, real statements from Iraqi economists saying they expect the dinar to keep appreciating. The September 30th deadline isn't a random date someone pulled out of thin air. It's tied to the end of the Status of Forces Agreement, the start of a new fiscal year, and explicit statements from Iraqi officials about wrapping reforms. The digital dinar isn't vaporware. It's part of a documented push by the central bank to modernize payments and support international trade. All of that is real. All of that is moving forward. The question is whether it adds up to a near-term revaluation or a long, slow strengthening over years. And on that, the community is genuinely split. Some voices think we're in the final stretch and it happens in weeks. Others think this is a multi-year process and we're still in the early innings. Both could be right, depending on what you mean by revalue. Here's what I think matters. If you're in this, you're in it because you believe Iraq's currency is deeply undervalued relative to the fundamentals of its economy, and that eventually, whether it's sudden or gradual, the rate adjusts to reflect the real value. That thesis is more plausible today than it was a year ago because Iraq is demonstrably more stable, more integrated, and more reformed than it was a year ago. Does that guarantee anything? No. But it means the story is moving in the right direction, and that's worth paying attention to. Now look, you didn't need to wait for me to tell you any of this morning. If you had the free app and you'd flagged dinar banking news or imminent timing claims or central bank updates, you'd have got a notification on your phone the second any of this dropped. That Chase story, the cabinet chatter, the digital dinar push, the forex-Wednesday talk, all of it was already sitting in the app hours ago, organized and ready for you anytime you wanted it. That's the whole point. You're not waiting on a daily show to catch you up. You're getting it live 24/7 the moment it lands. And if you only care about certain things, say dinar, Marxi, and anything flagged imminent, you set your free custom notifications that way and tune out the noise. It's all in one place. If you haven't grabbed it yet, GCR Sentinel is live now on the App Store. Search for it there, or head to gcrsentinel.com. It's a completely free download. VIP membership is free right now, and Google Play is coming very soon. In the meantime, gcrsentinel.com works as a free install for Android users today. So what are we watching today and into the weekend? 1. Anything out of Iraq about those final 9 cabinet ministers. If they get confirmed and there's any official statement tying it to economic readiness or currency policy, that's a real signal. 2. Early August generally and August 1st specifically. We've got the Chase story, we've got fresh timing chatter pointing to next week, and we've got other voices saying by the month of August. It's all speculation, but it's converging on a window. So we watch it, we don't get swept away by it, but we note it. 3. September 30th. Still on the board as a major convergence point, troop withdrawal, fiscal reforms, new fiscal year. It's far enough out that we're not holding our breath, but close enough that it's a real date. And 4. The parallel market and any statements out of the central bank about rate reviews, digital currency launches, or exchange rate policy. That's where the real story lives, not in someone's Telegram post, but in what Iraqi officials actually say and do. Take all of it with a grain of salt. We've heard next Wednesday and any day now, and Chase Bank said 100 times. Sometimes the intel is good and the timing slips. Sometimes the source is wrong. Sometimes it's wishful thinking dressed up as insider knowledge. We can't know which is which until it happens or doesn't. So we stay informed, we stay hopeful, we keep perspective, and we make smart decisions instead of emotional ones. That's the whole game. That's what I've got for you this Friday morning. Iraq is doing real work, the timing chatter is pointing to early August, and the bigger story, the modernization, the reforms, the integration is genuinely moving forward. Whether that adds to an RV in August or September or next year, I can't tell you. But we'll be here every morning, tracking it, organizing it, and keeping it all in perspective. If you haven't already, hit subscribe so you don't miss a morning. And if you know someone bouncing between 10 different sources trying to keep it all straight, send them here. That's exactly who we built this for. GCR Sentinel live now on the App Store, free download, VIP free right now, custom notifications so the moment something lands it's on your phone. Google Play coming very soon, GCRSentinel.com works for everybody today. And hey, VIP member Q&A is coming soon too. You'll be able to send in your questions and I'll answer them right here on the show. Keep an eye out for that. I'm Truman Vale. Stay smart, stay grounded, and I'll see you Monday morning.